Alright guys, we're going to start our work with Autodesk Revit, and we're going to start by making our utility shed, just to learn some of the basics of Revit. So the first thing you want to do is create a new project, and we're going to do that using this architectural template. So under Projects, when you first open Revit, click Architectural Template. And we're going to go ahead and save that to our, go ahead and save it so that periodically we can save this thing. So we're going to save as, and you want to do a project. And I'm going to just put it on the desktop. I would recommend that you upload it to your Google Drive or something that you can get to on any computer, so you don't have to rely on one computer when you get finished with the project. So we want to call this green utility shed, and then underscore your initials. So I'm going to put SG there for my initials and click Save. Alright, now that we've created the new project, we're on step 2. We want to rename the elevation levels. So this is called your project browser over here. And we want to right click on level 1 and click rename. And we're going to rename level 1 the floor level. And it'll ask if you want to rename it. I'm going to say yes. Then right click on level 2 and click rename. And we're going to name that roof. And click OK. And yes. And then we're going to open one of our elevation views. So if we scroll down here in our project browser, we're going to open the east elevation. And notice that the floor is at 0, 0, so that's at ground level. And then the roof right now is at 10 foot 0 inches. And we'll change that later, but just wanted you to see that those elevations had changed. Now we're going to learn how to draw exterior walls, and there are 3 methods that you can do that in. First thing you want to do, though, is in your project browser, again this is the project browser, we're going to be in the floor plan floor view. So I'm going to double click that floor view, and under the architecture tab we're going to select wall. And once I select wall, if I bring my cursor over here to the window, there's a plus sign so that we can draw. Also note that there are a lot of options here. Once you clicked walls, you can change the height of the wall, the location line, the chain or not, and offset. So we'll be going through some of those options. So the first way that you can create, the first method to create walls is by deselecting this chain option and then just creating each individual wall. Now our shed is supposed to be 12 foot by 16 foot. So I'm going to make, there's a 16 foot wall, 16 foot dash 0 inches. And if I just click and then click again, that will make a 16 foot wall. Now notice that when I clicked the second time, if I start drawing, I could really draw a wall out here if I wanted to. I don't really want that, so I'm going to delete that. But I can, but I want to click the end point of the wall I just made and click again, and then I can make the wall that way. So if you've deselected chain, then you've got to click the end point of the wall. Now one thing that's helping me is I see those dotted lines, and that means that I've lined everything up. So I'm going to click again and click. So that's the first method. Now I really, that is not my favorite method, but when you're making inside walls, sometimes it's necessary to use that method. So let's delete those walls and do another method. So again, this is method 2. And I probably like this one especially for exterior walls the most. So again, under architecture, we're going to click wall. And this time, instead of this line tool, we're going to use the rectangle tool. And we're just going to draw a rectangle. So again, it needs to be 16 foot by 12 foot. And then just click and it's done. So there's our wall. And I'm hitting escape to get out of the wall tool. So if you hit escape twice, you can get out of the wall tool. And so that's another way to do it. And let's go on and delete that. So I'm just highlighting and hitting delete. So the last method, again, click the wall tool, but this time we want the chain on. So I'm going to select chain, and this time when I make a wall, there's 16 foot, and I'm going to click again. This time, notice that it's staying connected versus what it did the first time. So I'm going to click that, and then 16 foot, click again, and then 12 foot, and click again. And then I'm going to hit escape, and escape one more time. And the one thing I want to make sure of is that that these two arrows are on the outside of the wall. If I change that, if I click that and change that, what that means is whatever material I put as the outside of the wall, it's going to be on the inside. So I want those arrows to be on the outside so that when I choose brick or some other kind of siding for this wall, that will be on the outside, and then drywall will be on the inside. So just go around, click, and make sure that those arrows are on the outside. Okay? Alright, now that we have created our walls, I'm going to show you how to change the dimensions of the walls. And you can, again, do that lots of ways. I'm going to hit escape twice so I can be out of the wall tool. So one way you can change the dimensions, if you click on this 16-foot wall, notice that the 12 foot is what comes up. So what you can do is grab this little dot here. It's called a gripper, and it allows you to change the dimensions of the walls. Well, it doesn't really change the dimensions. It actually changes where let me zoom in so you can see what it's doing. If I click that gripper, it's showing me that from the inside of this wall to the middle of that wall is 11 foot 8. Inside to inside is 11 foot 4. And then outside to inside is 12 foot. And then outside to outside is 12 foot 8. So we're supposed to make from outside to outside be 12 foot. So I can do that a couple of ways. I can just click the dimension and put 12-0 in, and that'll make it exactly 12 foot even. The other way I can do it, I'm going to undo what I just did. So the other way that I can do that, and again, it's 12 foot 8 from outside to outside. See, our extension lines are outside to outside. The other way I can do it is click the wall perpendicular to this one and then start dragging this wall. So you see when I drug that wall how it changed the dimension to 11 foot 6. Now, what I don't like about that is it's a little bit hard, especially if you're not zoomed in. It's a little bit hard to drag it exactly. So I like just clicking the dimension and changing it. So the next thing we want to do is check the 16-foot wall. And again, to check the 16-foot wall, you actually click the 12-foot wall. And then change your grippers to make sure that they're outside to outside. So right now that's outside of the wall to the middle of the wall. That's inside. Now that's outside to outside. So I'm going to change this to 16 foot even, 16-0, and hit enter. So now my dimensions are 16 by 12. And notice it did change the ones on the other side as well. Then these are temporary dimensions, and I can change those to permanent dimensions. If I click on that, again, I'm going to change my grippers to outside to outside. I can make that a permanent dimension by clicking. I clicked on this dimension line right here, and there's a little lock that comes up, and I'm going to lock that dimension so that it can't be changed. And then I'll do that to the 16-foot wall as well. So change my grippers to outside. And then I have to click this dimension line. Let me see if I can get that back up. And then the lock. Alright. So I've got both of those locked. Okay, now I am going to revise the level elevation. So I'm on step 5 if you're following along here. So I'm going to go in my project browser to one of the elevation views, and I'm going to go to the east elevation. And I want my roof not to be 10 foot. I really want that to be 8 foot. So I'm going to change that to 8-0 just by clicking it and changing the dimension just like we did on the wall. And I want the ceilings to be 8 foot instead of 20 foot. So notice if I click on that, that's 20 foot tall. So we're going to be changing that as well later on. The step 6, they just want you to be able to see the 3D view. So if you go to View and select 3D View, this works a lot the way that Inventor works. You have this little cube right here, and you can spin it around, just click the top or the back, and you guys can play with that. But it works very similarly to the way that Inventor works with the cube and the steering wheel. Okay, so step 7, we're going to change the wall height. When you create walls in Revit, they automatically default to 20-foot walls. So there's 2 ways that you can actually change the wall height. One is in this 3-dimensional view, or even in the floor plan, you can just click the wall, and over here under Properties, notice you can change the kind of wall it is, and we will be doing that later. But for now, you can see that it has an unconnected height of 20 feet. We're going to change that to 8 foot. So I'm going to do 8-0 and hit apply. And that will change that wall to 8 foot. The other way that you can do it is to open an elevation view. So I'm going to open the east elevation, and you can see one of the walls is already changed, but if I click this wall back here, it's still showing at 20 foot. So I can do 8-0 on that, and that changes that one. And then I can click another one, and then 8-0. And it looks like I still have one at 20 foot, so I'm going to do 8-0 on that one. So now all of my walls are changed. If you go to 3D view, you can see that they're all the same height. So view and 3D view, they're all the same height. There's my elevation again. We could have done that all together by using our control key and selecting all the walls at once, and we would have done that as well. Next thing we're going to do, step 8, is to add some floors. So if I go in my project browser to the floor plan, there's my floor plan of my shed. Then I want to, under the architecture tab, I want to click on floor. Now our floor is going to go from the outside of each wall. So I'm going to click that, and notice that the outside wall is what's in pink or purple. So make sure that it's going on the outside on yours. If it's not, you can just click it again, and it will, like those little arrows, you could click that and it would go to the inside. But we want them on the outside. So I clicked the boundary, and then I'm going to tell it what kind of floor that I want. So I'm going to come over here and change it from a generic 12-inch floor to a wood joist 10-inch wood finish floor. So that tells it to put joist underneath of the floor and then to put a wood finish on top. And once I've done that, I can just click the green check mark and we'll be good. And again, if you want to see that in 3 dimensions, you can kind of come in here and look and see the wood slats in the floor. We can even look at it here as well. Alright, and then the next thing that we want to do is create a roof. So again, I'm going to go this time under my project browser, I'm going to go to the roof level instead of the floor level. So double click the roof, and then under the architecture tab, I'm going to click roof. And one thing to keep in mind here is you want the slope of your roof to be on the longest side. So right now I'm going to keep define slope checked, and I'm also going to make an overhang of 1 foot. And I want to extend my roof to the wall core, so I'm going to check that box. So I'm going to click the longest wall and the other longest wall. And those, notice that those are the ones that have the slope, they'll be slanted. And then I want to uncheck define slope, but keep this other stuff checked, and I want to click my shorter walls. And as soon as I'm done with that, I'm going to click the green check mark. It'll ask if I want to attach the walls to the roof, and I'm going to say yes. And that doesn't look good from that view, but if you look at it from the 3-dimensional view, then we've got a roof, a gable roof. So we've got that finished, and then on we're going to make this a shaded view, shade this whole project, or this whole shed. So if you come under here, down at the bottom, you've got some options about the different views. So I'm going to click this rectangular prism and click shaded, and it's going to shade my shed for me. Then I'm going to on step 10, I'm going to change one of the walls to be a brick wall. And this really, on the sheds we make for habitat, these will not be brick, but I just want to show you how to do it. So one way you can do that is just click the wall you want to change. So I'm going to change, it says to do it on one of the 12-foot walls, so I want to click this wall. And right now you can see it says basic generic 8-inch wall. I can just click the down arrow there, and they want me to change it to an exterior brick on metal stud. So that would be this one. And that's where before, when we clicked those double arrows to make sure they were on the outside, if those had been on the inside, our brick would have been on the inside. So that's the reason that one was important. And then last, we're going to make this more of a realistic view. So I'll click that and click realistic, and that'll make it a little bit more realistic. Now, it'll be even more realistic when you start adding shading and lighting and all that kind of stuff. But this concludes part 1 of creating your utility shed. So go ahead and save your utility shed, and then in the next video we'll continue with part 2.